Well, hello, that's me again. Today is June 1st, 2025. It is Sunday, and let me spoil your weekend. But I will start obviously from the thing which has been absolutely amplified, or overly, I would say, in Western media, primarily British media such as BBC, and of course Ukrainian media. And let's start with this attack. And for those people who still believe what is being told them by all kinds of the media outlets, whenever we are dealing with the issues of the claims by Ukraine and of obviously its curators, we have to keep in mind that essentially you have to always divide it by 10 or sometimes by 100 in order to understand what have happened. What have happened, it was the diversionary terrorist attack essentially, but it is diversionary action, if you wish, because in the end there is a special military operation. And as always, much of it have been designed for the media effect. Some people who are not very prudent in what they report on the side in Russia, including the famous outlets of the so-called military correspondents, much of them are either direct or indirect shadow assets of the Western intelligence services. They started to declaring something like, for example, the attack of the FPV drones, which was conducted through the setup in the just regular containers on the even basis of nuclear powered submarines of the Northern Fleet, which turned out to be complete crap. But yes, as Russian Defense Ministry and Russian officials state and about this attack, they talk about that essentially the number of the events have happened there. Here we have this, that Kiev carried out a terrorist attack using FPV drones against airfields in Murmansk, Irkutsk, Ivanovo, Ryazan, and yes, Amur region, and even Irkutsk. I mean, so it's Siberia and Far East. So in the Ivanovo, Ryazan, and Amur regions, all attacks were repelled. In the Murmansk and Irkutsk regions, aircraft caught fire. Yes, they hit some of the aircraft. Drones were launched from the territory located in the immediate vicinity of these airfields. Fires were extinguished. There are no casualties among military personnel and civilian personnel. Some participants in the terrorist attacks were detained. And if you put this together with the terrorist acts which have been confirmed now in Bryansk and Kursk Oblast, when they were basically blowing up the bridges and caught two trains, one of them passenger train, and there are 66 casualties, 10 of them are fatalities. That was designed obviously to create classic, PR thing, which this is the only thing which London can do. It doesn't have real army. It's a terrorist, basically a political elite there. So that's what they do. That's what they're good at creating the terrorist attacks. And obviously, in terms of the FPV drones attack, I won't call that it is necessarily purely terrorist, unlike the situation with the bridges and the trains, which is pure terrorism. We are talking about obviously the whole operation which have been carried out, and when you look at any basically instruction or manual regarding the counterinsurgency or insurgency, you have to keep in mind that guerrilla diversionary activity can happen only, it can happen if you have the large portion of population supporting you. You may say that, oh yeah, this is, Russia. Well, it is Russia. The problem is, I pointed out to this problem for years now. No, not months, for years. And you haven't heard, most likely, Vladimir Putin repeating this thing which became meme. And actually, it's the thing which largely Russian society doesn't accept as the truth, that Ukrainian people are brotherly people. This present Ukrainian state and the Ukrainian nation are no brotherly people to Russia. And so in this case, you have a bunch of them which have been especially allowed to hold Russian passports starting from 2014, especially in Donetsk and Lugansk area, which of course inevitably created the situation of the infiltration of the special services, both Ukrainian and those people who well curate them. And those are primarily MI6, which is essentially a terrorist organization, and CIA. But this one is probably the most likely conceived in Great Britain, because obviously they have no military capacity. But the only thing they can do is this, and Europe is absolutely terrified by tomorrow, those technical negotiations between Russian and Ukrainian delegations should happen in Istanbul, and Russians never presented any memorandum correctly, so I would say, and memorandum which Ukraine presented is absolutely ridiculous. And you have to understand that United States can, beat around the bush whatever it wants. United States is the party to this conflict. United States bears responsibility for what is happening for the last 10 years. It was, more than 10 years. So, and if you remember Victoria EU Nuland and people of this nature, those were Americans, okay? So, and any attempts of Trump to pretend that he mediates something are preposterous, honestly. United States is the party to the conflict, and if Trump wanted to actually stop this whole thing, he would have done this before. Now, obviously, we have the somewhat split between American side and European side, and especially those British guys who, they're losers. They lost everything they can. They live on this little island, and they try to pretend that they matter. They don't. But yes, terrorism and things of this nature will continue, as was the case, for example, when the killing of the two Russian generals, one of the commander-in-chief of the troops of the biological, chemical, and radiation defense, and another of the one of the deputy chiefs of the main operational directorate of the general staff. Those things cannot happen unless you have willing people who support you. And it has been already established about this FPV drone attack that it happened in the Chelyabinsk, the assembly of those containers with the FPV drones have happened already in Chelyabinsk, and at least one of the assembly locations have been already identified. And as you can see yourself, how could it have gotten there? Well, you can deliver things through Kazakhstan, which of course, while obviously not condoning this, but it's probably pretty easy to, run it through. And after that, the Chelyabinsk and then the spread of those containers all over Russia. And let me tell you, you can go out there and see yourself videos of even people stopping those containers when they see that the drones started to fly out of there. So it's not the first time. Remember the explosion on the Crimean Bridge, all things of this nature. These are British primarily, but obviously they have their all now, what is called SOBs. They're SOBs now, and that's what they want to do. They want to, as long as Russians dying, they're good with that. So this is who they are, and you cannot change that. It's a cultural DNA of the sore losers who can only do the terrorism, because obviously militarily they're a joke. So, and that's what is this all about those events which happened in the last 48 hours. And keep in mind, this is all regarding the sabotage, actually, of the any kind of, which are not really negotiations. Basically, what sides do there, they come in, they presented unacceptable thing, the Ukrainians, which of course on the instructions from London, but in the end, you know what, these are US allies, so to speak, and when Mr. Kellogg begins to pretend that he somehow understands what is going on in terms of military and political dynamics, it's really preposterous. Per Trump, really, I mean, this is not serious anymore. And the fact that State Department begins suddenly that talking about that they have some kind of, demands or expectations on those negotiations, really. And so yesterday it was already reported that the United States does not want negotiations on Ukraine to drag on, the State Department says. Well, and the problem for State Department, somebody has to explain to them, many of them know who they are, is that, United States has no role here whatsoever and has no influence. But yet they say it is not a matter of time. It is not just a standard operating procedure. It won't last for months or years when we have standards and benchmarks for what needs to happen. Well, they can have whatever the benchmarks they have, but as I already stated there, when you sign your own military and political impotence by actually involving yourself into that thing which even Germans begin to admit, well, what can I say? You're not gonna expect anything from there. For example, we have this guy, that defeating Russia is impossible, German foreign minister. The Ukraine conflict can only end at the negotiating table. Well, it's not negotiating table. That's what German foreign minister Johann Weidfuhl doesn't understand. It's not negotiating table. It's the table where the surrender is signed by Ukraine and combined West. And hence this whole proceedings about with the terrorism, killing Russians, and things of this nature. So, and he says that key Western backers, including top officials in Germany, France, and UK, as well as the US under former President Joe Biden's administration, repeatedly stated that they intend to inflict strategic defeat on Moscow in the Ukraine conflict, or at least to ensure that it does not emerge victorious. That justifications have been used to support continued military assistance to Kiev. Simple as that, and we know it. I don't know how many times I have to really repeat and go over it, and as I already stated, it is all about West being defeated militarily. And if you take a look what is happening prior to, so to speak, our negotiations, if you wish, we have this. First, we have the VSU losses, which are Armed Forces of Ukraine losses for today. As you can see yourself, it's back to, just average about 1,500 a day. Most of them are KIA, so we're looking at probably the final death tally when the actually the hostilities will kind of wind down. Probably on the officially admitted KIA is about, 1.5 million. Now, if we go in and take a look at what is happening, you can see yourself. This is the development of the buffer zone in Sumy region. My gosh, look at this. It's actually yesterday, as you can see yourself, and a lot of things are happening there, including, some things in terms of the annihilation of the whatever the units or formations are they're trying to hide around Sumy, the city of Sumy itself, but Russians already fighting inside Yunakovka, and so it all continues. The rolling to the west by Russians continues, and what can I say? You cannot change this. And obviously, when you have people from the what is passes for general staff in London, they do not understand military. But Mr. Alaudinov, no less, he spoke yesterday. And this is what I've been talking about for years now, that the North Atlantic Alliance has been preparing the operation of Ukrainian militants in the Kursk region for about 6 months. Lieutenant General Avtial Alaudinov, commander of the Hamas Special Forces, deputy head of the main military political directorate of Ministry of Defense, told RIA News. The committee of the headquarters of the NATO bloc was preparing such a super operation, super being, of course, used with the, sarcasm, which in fact was supposed to be guaranteed to be effective. They collected all the resources that they only have, all types of foreign equipment, trained fighters, he said. Well, result, it turns out that Russia has always won. And so, when you listen to this and you read this, and this is what I'm, repeating non-stop, and I was supposed to do absolutely different thing today, but then, of course, again, events interfered, and you have to discuss the terrorism, which is the only thing that NATO is capable of militarily. It's a paper tiger. And Alaudinov actually is pretty correct. Well, not pretty, he's absolutely correct here, because if you look attentively at what was demonstrated by all those, military strategists and operational planners of NATO, it's pathetic. It's a kindergarten level. It's this, template-based, primitive, rigid application of some things they learned being in quotation marks and beating the crap out of the militaries, which are not real militaries, such as Saddam's army. And as a result, we have this. And of course, we have these events, which will continue, make no mistake, terrorism, trying to kill Russian officials, trying to create, mayhem, killing civilians. That's what especially British love to do, they kill civilians. They are really good at it. So, and this is what is this all about. It will continue. It will continue also because Russia is flooded with some portion of population of the Ukrainians who either openly support or tacitly support Ukraine and what it does. They live among Russians, they look exactly like Russians because ethnically they are Russians, they speak Russian language, but many of them are willing accomplices to all kinds of the atrocities. And of course the other issue of the immigration, which is immigration from those stans, so to speak, the Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan, which obviously very often willing to commit atrocities such as, for example, Crocus City. And it will continue, nothing you can do about it, because obviously you have millions of people like that. It doesn't mean that all millions of them are like that, but very substantial part of those people is like that. And it was a huge mistake of which I wrote 10 years ago, that they are not brotherly people. They just, they hate Russia. And I can quote myself that the Ukrainian nation, it coalesced into the political nation. It is ugly, doesn't look nice, but it is a nation nonetheless with self-awareness, and doesn't matter how much you brainwash them. They wanted it, and that's the whole thing. Actually, those seeds have been sown on the fertile soil, and as a result, we see, and what is happening now, we observe it for the last more than 3 years, really. I mean, starting from the 2013. So, and that will be it for today in terms of discussing this issue, because obviously the new information will come up, and we'll have sit and discuss this, and debunking all those things about the fire on the nuclear power submarines, or that they killed 40 Russian planes. They damaged, evidently. There is a report of 1 295 strategic bomber being damaged, but most of it has been repelled. And again, these are FPV drones. It depends actually how they work, what kind of explosives they carry. But as already stated, enough about this for now, at least. And so I want to, the thing which I wanted to actually address today was precisely why we have this development, so to speak, in the so-called military science and so-called. There is no military science, really, if you look attentively at how it is being taught and how it is being implemented in the, for example, United States military academies or war colleges, not to speak about those vocational schools like so-called Academy Sandhurst in Britain or any other academies. They have people there for 3 years for something, and they think that they created the real serious officers. They don't. Not to say that there are no serious officers. They are, and there are some obviously really good professionals, as they exist in the US Army, for example. But their trend is downward, and it's really bad. And when you look at this, you have to ask yourself a question. And Russians already went out on record, and they stated that the people who understand what is going on, they study what is happening. Well, correct. I'm pretty sure there are a number of the military professionals in the United States who study it. But as I stated non-stop, ad nauseam, you either have serious military background or you don't, and period. And once you don't, then suddenly things go completely astray. And here is the proof. Listen, I've been on record for so many times that these people are not serious. This is a shyster organization, which is, there is no BS which, for example, Rand Corporation wouldn't justify, just granted that it is paid good amount of money to do that. So, but yes, when I talk about the Rand Corporation, which is, by the way, you see the drones. And especially when you read those people's backgrounds, this Mark Hvizda, Brian Frederick, Alisa Laufer, Alexandra Emmons, Kristen Guinness, and David Ochmanek, they wrote this report. This report is one of the indications of which I'm talking about, of a complete intellectual collapse and professionalism collapse in the NATO militaries, and they write about that, dispersed, disguised, and degradable, the implication of the fighting in Ukraine for future US-involved conflicts. United States, I will tell you immediately, will learn absolutely nothing from this, especially from people from RAND, because these are amateurs, most of them, and they have obviously, like David Ashmanek, he has a degree in political science, and many of those people are primarily a degree in political science, and when they have something like PhD in physics, for example, some of them they still have zero military background, they do not understand what they are dealing with, and as the result, Rand, when they wrote this paper, they are beginning to come out with incredible things. So they begin with the conclusions and findings. I don't know. I will immediately forestall any kind of things regarding their sources. Their sources are primarily Ukrainian propaganda. And as the result, it's a worthless piece of paper. But the reason I pay attention to this garbage, essentially, which you cannot use when printed even as the toilet paper, because you will get anal brain cancer just from, doing the, wiping it. So you have to understand, those people do not understand how to develop information into knowledge. And as the result, they make some general things which anybody, like the delivery of mass is changing. All the mass has been delivered in Ukraine primarily as artillery. Future yes-involved conflicts might advantage different systems. No, they will not. And honestly, after the performance of 777s, all those and other US provided artillery, pardon my French, let me be very straight, it sucks. It's just literally incredibly susceptible to wear and tear. The barrels lose their ballistic basically qualities, and if they think that they can provide it by something else, I have news for them. And this is where immediately you cannot explain to anybody from RAND, or for that matter from very many people in Pentagon, that Russia outproduces today all NATO combined West, if order of magnitude in terms of any kind of the fires, be them artillery, let alone long-range fires, let alone smart munitions. American production, not European. Europeans are not even registered here. American production of the high-precision weapons is not even in the same universe in quantity and in quality as this one is from Russia. But no, those people continue to really pretend that they know what they're talking about, which they don't, and they suddenly come to this. Competency matters as much, if not more, than technology. The fighting in Ukraine has demonstrated the continued importance of tactical proficiency, sound operational planning, and coherent strategy. I have news for this bunch of the shysters from RAND. United States doesn't know what is good operational planning is, and let alone strategy. None of them, zero people from this organization will understand what strategy is and how it is developed and how it is applied, because those people live in the alternative universe, and they talk these intangible factors are also among the most challenging characteristics to assess in the absence of war, meaning military analysts must develop better analytical techniques for measuring them in peacetime. You can't. That's the problem. Mr. Achmanek, You have no toolkit to develop any techniques, because when you read this document, it is all based on either some garbage like CNN reports or some Ukrainian dude from some think tank in London or in Hamburg or whatever. Just look at the bibliography. There is not a single reliable data in there, but yet they talk about the analytical technique. They don't have it. And the models which United States have been used prior to all this, they are all garbage, because they are based on the garbage in, garbage out. And as the result, when these people talk about competence, there are no competent people in Pentagon. They really do not know. And that's what exactly Alodinov stated. These people have no clue what they were doing. The only thing they know is a template. The only thing they know is how to memorize some operational tactical manual, and that's about it. There is no creative and really artsy, if you wish, approach. And again, that's what I'm trying to say. Operational art is not strong point. So now they talk. Air superiority is critical. Many of the dilemmas highlighted in Ukraine arise from the inability of either combatant to establish air superiority. Okay, last time I checked, Russians have complete air superiority, but then again, you have to understand, this is RAND. Initially, it was created as the Air Force think tank, and for some reason, they decided that, United States is the best thing ever, but so you see yourself immediately. You can throw this paper away, but again, because it is RAND, because they have this blown up, grossly embellished, exaggerated, credentials, if you wish, you read this, and these people have no clue what they're talking about. And the reason being, as I already stated, even these so-called competent people, which they are not competent, they are utterly incompetent. Mr. Rachmanik is incompetent. Any guy, spit on any guy in RAND, you have the political scientist or some moron with the view of the world which was faced in the, basically degree meals in the United States. And so, he talks about that although a similar struggle could arise in the Indo-Pacific, a NATO-Russia war would likely see Western air forces control the skies, given the West's technological overmatched and Russia evident air power deficiencies. So yeah, they do not even understand basic things about air defense. United States doesn't have actual air defense. It's what is passes for the air defense in the United States, and in NATO it is really basically obsolete means, and as I already stated there, it is humiliating performance of what they try to pretend that even 10 years ago they were saying, oh gosh, Patriot PAC-3 is awesome, the thought. None of them works. And if you want to see how the THAAD works, for example, look how Houthis, obsolete ballistic missile hit the Tel Aviv airport. THAAD didn't do a thing. So what can I say? And so these people continue from RAND. I mean, you can see yourself that... Observation 1. The pairing of persistent surveillance capabilities with precision fires has created a new and unresolved dilemma for offensive operations. No, it didn't. But then again, you have to explain to all those, people who are constantly draw their basically conclusions from all kinds of the incompetent semi-professional sources, or written by some dude who doesn't understand even the basic thing about the operations. They talk about that actually they have to somehow have this dilemma for offensive operations. Russians are on offensive right now. They don't understand that Russians do not want, as of yet, go and take hold of Ukraine. This may change. But you know what? Strategy? They do not know what strategy is. They literally do not. Basically, the strategic thought in combined West today, it is, my gosh, it's not even second, it's the third rate. The only thing those people know, they quote the sources, which are, of course, at best unreliable, most of the time just made up statistics. They quote people who wrote for the United States Army, for example, like Nazi and Wehrmacht, wrote all those defensive basically concepts. And so they think that they have this dilemma. No, they don't. Russians don't. Russians operate strictly within the parameters set up by the political strategy as manifested and as stated by the political top of Russia. Can it change? Absolutely. It is already changing, and we already saw ourselves that actually in the end it is all about physical annihilation. But I mean, these people just simply do not understand. And when you even here, if you read attentively, I don't even know how to, look at the sources below. Look at the bibliography, so to speak. They do this echo chamber non-stop by people. And we already can state most of the people in Washington, they have no idea what modern operations are and what modern warfare is. They don't, including all those, top brass. But yet we have these guys from Rand constantly referring to people who never won a freaking thing in their lives. They lost all of it, and yet they continue to pretend that United States is somehow the finest fighting force, which it never was. And so, as the result, these people, they try to influence policies, and as the result, air defense have been resilient against manned aircraft, but have been less effective against UAS. And again, if you look attentively on the bibliography, it is all taken from all those shady sources from the, well, primarily NATO, which cannot actually admit, they don't have integrity, they don't have honor, they don't have courage to come and say that, what they know as air defense is not really air defense. And the actual operations of the Russian air defense, or VKS, is beyond their grasp. They simply do not have data. They do not have even access to the environment or professional circle, unlike yours truly, who, well, know things, and they can say things without saying them. And yeah, I will understand. Ashmanik will not. He will not understand that. Neither probably will most of those, generals in Pentagon who, like Kellogg, like Kim, like all those people. And what can I say? And the price is being paid. And as a result of events of the last 48 hours, especially with the terrorist attacks on the trains and the passenger trains, there will be response, all right? And now Mr. Trump can go and dance, this voodoo dance around the fire, thinking that somehow he or his, his clown Kellogg somehow can convince Russians to do one thing or another. They can't. They do not matter. It's just that Russians have been magnanimous enough to give Trump a little bit of time to recover, if you wish, from his BS and, being hot air balloon, promising things he cannot deliver. But you know what? The time ran out, and in a sense, it's good that it happened, because we can see the different developments in coming days. In fact, this I already know, they are already in progress. Anyhow, this is what I wanted to tell you, and instead of developing and discussing the issue of the standards and developing of the jet engines, and why I laugh when people start writing me about this, oh yeah, Chinese have the CJ1000 engine, which is about to be certified. No, it is not about to be certified, but that's the separate issue. And I wanted to do today the review of these technical parameters which are and standards which are required for the aerospace industry, and especially for the jet engines, power plant of the commercial airliners. But you know what? Events overtook it. So this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and two. That will keep me in business. And so have a nice rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.